Often referred to as the King of Horror, author Stephen King has had an unprecedented career as the creator of many of the world's most beloved dark stories. From his first publication in 1962 to the present day, over 60 novels and novellas and hundreds of short stories, the majority written as horror fiction, have made King the most prolific and successful writer in his field. With such success comes the obligatory cinematic adaptions. For almost 50 years and currently at 60+ movies strong, with no signs of slowing down, it's time to take a look and see what I believe to be the top 10 Stephen King movies. For this list, I'll be overlooking any movies that do not fall into the category of alternate cinema. I'll also be avoiding sequels and focusing only on King's horror tales and dark thrillers. So let's begin. Number 10. Inspired by a trip to a mechanic with an angry Saint Bernard and affirmed by a report of a killing by a rabid dog, Cujo is a story that feels all too believable. Starring horror royalty Dee Wallace as Donna Trenton, as she and her son Ted find themselves trapped inside a Ford Pinto, preyed upon by their own pet dog. Not relying on any supernatural antagonist or psychopath, the simple setup and easily relatable story made for an unexpectedly intense experience. And despite a slew of mixed reviews, Cujo remains one of King's personal favorite adaptations. Number 9. In this third collaboration with director Frank Darabont, The Mist tells the tale of a small community trapped inside a local store, held hostage by otherworldly creatures within the titular Mist. With a somewhat Lovecraftian flavor and featuring many of King's character tropes, what makes the picture stand out is its political and social commentary, serving almost as a dark satire. One of the more controversial issues of the movie being Darabont's dark nihilistic rewriting of the climax, ultimately earning the greatest praise from Stephen King, publicly claiming he wished he'd written the unforgettable ending himself. Number 8. On the surface appearing as nothing more than a throwaway popcorn B-movie, upon viewing Christine is so much more. Following social outcast Arnie, who upon purchasing a '58 Plymouth Fury, undergoes a drastic personality change. Finding himself becoming progressively more confident, he begins to realize it's the car itself which is bewitching him. Directed by fellow master of horror John Carpenter, the movie at first would only appeal to dedicated fans, overlooked by many simply due to its premise. However, since its release, it's still being discovered as an unsung horror classic. Number 7. Following the passing of his family cat, King's imagination pondered the idea of what would happen if the cat would return, but fundamentally wrong. Pet Sematary would be the result. Loosely based on the classic novel The Monkey's Paw, the story follows the Creed family, who after discovering a native burial ground with the ability to return the dead back to life, lose their son in a tragic accident, only to have him returned as a sinister being. Receiving a respectable update in 2019, acclaimed by King as one of his few stories that actually scared him, Pet Sematary continues to terrify new generations and remains one of King's most iconic pictures. Number 6. Never be one to shy away from inspiration. It would only be a matter of time before King would delve into vampire lore. The fruit of his venture being Salem's Lot, a 2-part miniseries that sees a successful author return home only to find the haunted house of his childhood is now residence to the monstrous Kurt Barlow, a Nosferatu-like vampire who's slowly converting the town. Directed by Tobe Hooper of Texas Chainsaw fame, the show would go on to develop its own cult following. Considered one of the scariest miniseries of all time, Salem's Lot is also recognized as the first modern take on vampire lore. Number 5. As King's first novel to receive solo publication, it would ironically be released to very little fanfare. It wasn't until its cinematic adaptation that Carrie would affirm King's writing. Telling the story of a social outcast teen who upon reaching puberty becomes victim of severe bullying. Developing telekinetic powers, we follow her until she's pushed to her nihilistic breaking point. Featuring standout performances from Sissy Spacek and Piper Laurie, even as King's first ever feature film is still remembered to this day as one of his greatest, and Carrie herself as a certified horror icon. Number 4. Feeling like one of King's more personal fears, Misery follows the story of a similarly successful author who after a freak accident becomes captive and victim to a crazed hyperfan. Starring James Caan and an Academy Award-winning performance from Kathy Bates, we watch as the incapacitated Paul Sheldon is passively tortured for killing off a fictional character. Referring to Annie Wilkes as King's personal favorite character, the movie has since been recognized by the Library of Congress and selected for preservation as a picture of cultural importance. Number 3. Arguably one of King's most underappreciated pictures, The Dead Zone was also his first #1 best-selling book. Named after the old concept of the unused dead zone of the brain, we follow the teacher Johnny Smith, who following a freak accident awakens from a 5-year coma with the ability of second sight. Starring the legendary Christopher Walken and directed by horror master David Cronenberg, the story proved so strong it would receive its own TV series in 2002. Criminally overlooked, the original Dead Zone movie is an outstanding picture, truly deserving of greater recognition. Number 2. Unable to separate the original adaptation and the 2017 movie, as both have their own unique merits and flaws, It is still a beloved movie, separated only by generational opinion. The tale of a time-old entity with a taste for fearing children, who returns to the small town of Derry every 27 years to feed its hunger. Comparing the two adaptations, there's no questioning that the story of the Losers Club as youths is by far the more interesting tale. Both versions showcasing their fears in equally disturbing and horrific ways. Now seen as a pop culture icon, whether your preference is Bill Skarsgård or Tim Curry, Pennywise has risen the ranks to become one of the most recognized and greatest villains in the history of fiction, and it, a story that's able to terrify multiple generations. Before we get to number 1, if you enjoy Demented Top 10s, show your appreciation by hitting the thumbs up button, and be sure to subscribe to keep up with the channel. Also, have your say in future Top 10s and follow Demented Pictures on Facebook, or consider supporting the show on Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Links in the description box below. Number 1. There's a certain controversy in that The Shining has topped this list. Notoriously panned by Stephen King for deviating from his original vision, the movie is more attuned to the storytelling of director Stanley Kubrick. This being said, there is no denying that the movie is undoubtedly one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Telling the story of Jack Torrance as his family become caretakers of the colossal yet remote Overlook Hotel. Intending to use the winter season as solace for his writing, we slowly see Jack's descent into madness as he's twisted by the hotel itself. Starring Jack Nicholson in possibly his most iconic role, and overlooking King's opinion of the final feature, As a psychological horror movie, The Shining stands as a perfect blend between writer and director. So there's my list. Were there any I missed? Which Stephen King adaptation do you love the most? Leave a comment below, and be sure to check out some other top 10s on screen now. And remember, no list is definitive but the one you make yourself. This is Mike from Demented Pictures saying, may your movies be bloody and your scares be shitless.